This portion of CBS This Morning is sponsored by Advil. No non-prescription pain reliever is proven to work better than Advil.
And we're back at just about 22 minutes before the hour. Here in New York tonight, Cissy Lax will pick up a check for $25,000 as the winner of the Penn Newman's own First Amendment Award. But it is an expensive prize. She was fired last year by the St. Louis School Board from her job as a high school English teacher for allowing her students to use profanity in their creative writing assignments. We're going to meet Cissy Lax in just a minute, but first, the General Counsel of Lax School District, Frank Sussman, joins us from St. Louis to discuss the issues in this case. Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
Why did the school board dismiss Cissy Lax?
The school board dismissed the teacher in this case because she chose to violate board policy which prohibits the use of profanity by students.
Has anybody tested this policy before?
Students have previously been disciplined for using profanity, yes.
And had Miss Lax done this on repeated occasions, or was it just one situation that triggered this?
Her allowing the profanity by the students was pervasive by her own testimony.
And had you given her a warning and made her aware of what the school policy was?
She was well aware of the school policy, and she admitted that her contract in fact required her to be aware of it, and she had previously been warned time and time again by her principal in the prior year concerning the school newspaper.
The question that a lot of people have is whose job is it to define profanity? Is that the school board's role?
Well, this was not a question of defining profanity. The teacher in this case, as well as all of her experts, acknowledged that the profanity in this particular case was extreme and disgusting. It's not a question of whether this was not profanity. Everybody agreed that it was.
When you say everybody agreed, you're talking about you had a unanimous opinion of all the board members?
Even the teacher agreed that this was profanity. Her own experts found it to be extreme and disgusting and not something any of us would want our children to do.
What role do you think race played in this case?
Absolutely none. I know this is part of her claim, but you have to remember that the teacher here was discharged by a school board of 6 members, all of whom were the same race as the teacher.
People think that what this case really is all about is freedom of speech. How are you going to counter those charges that Ms. Lax's freedom of speech and her right to it were violated?
Well, no one denied the teacher in this case the right to say anything. It was a teaching method in question. The school board is required to set a certain standard of morals and decorum in the schools, and that is what they did. I don't think anybody would ever suggest that an art teacher who wanted to use live nude models in high school to teach the drawing of human form would be permitted to do so. The school board is elected to set the standards of the community.
Mr. Sussman, thank you for your time this morning. We're going to hear the other side of the story from Cissy. She joins us here in New York this morning. Good morning.
Thanks. Hi.
You just heard what Mr. Sussman had to say about your firing and what triggered it. What is your reaction to what he had to say this morning?
Well, it's sad because what I'm talking about and thinking about is students and how they learn and the process they need to go through to learn and what I need to do to make sure that they're the best writers and the best communicators they can be. And that doesn't happen using the kinds of things that he talked about. He scares teachers. He makes us so afraid that when we go into a classroom, we can't do anything. We're afraid that someone's going to come out of the blue and say, I'm sorry, you missed the point. You don't get it. You think you're following policy, but you're not. You're fired. No one will teach under those conditions.
You are encouraging your students to write the way they speak. Did you know profanity was going to become the issue that it has become?
No, not at all. For 25 years, I've been using the same principles, which is I do not censor creative writing. I think it's a very bad policy for students. They will not get to the point they need to be to. But the thing is that students decide, along with the teacher, when something is public and when it's performed. And the things that my students perform in public and the poems they write, we have a literary magazine that was never in that school before. That kind of decision is really important, but when a school district makes first drafts of something public, that's embarrassing to me and to the students and very disrespectful to us and to the learning process.
We all react to language in very different ways. How would you characterize the types of words and phrases that your students use that triggered your firing?
It was street language, which is what most people are saying around the United States as well, the experts. It was street language, which students are using a lot of now. They're a different age than I am. They have a different culture. And they're not using the language in a class. That's another thing I want to make sure everybody understands. They created characters, and one of the things they learned is this language appropriate to that character? And if it is, it's good writing. But if it isn't, if a mother who's 65 is using street language, something's wrong. If a child is using it to a mother in a script, something is wrong. But if it's appropriate for the people who are talking, that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's what playwrights do. That's what writers do. And when students privately are at a job interview, they're not using this language. When we tape job interviews, students are learning what they're supposed to do, at what time, with which people. That's a perfectly good thing to do in school.
Mr. Sussman suggested that they had warned to you that you were walking a fine line.
Yes.
Did you hear those warnings, or did you choose to ignore them?
No, not only have I never been warned, but if I have time, I'd like to tell a story. That warning about the newspaper.
You have to tell it quickly, unfortunately.
Under oath, the principal said that the F word was in the first newspaper. Under oath, here's the first newspaper. There is nothing in this newspaper. I was never called in, I was never warned, and there was nothing to be warned about. So that is also very scary. An administrator lied under oath, and the school board chose to believe the lie, seeing the newspaper.
We will be following your case. Thank you for joining us this morning.